Do you ever run out of stuff to say when you're talking to women? If you do, I want you to keep watching this video because by the end of it, you're gonna have some amazing tips of how you never need to run out of stuff to say ever again. Ben Alexander here from the Legends Academy. We are the #1 success education for men, and we help men with confidence, dating and relationships, and financial freedom. Why is it that we run out of stuff to say? And because if you're like me, when you're talking with your friends, your family, your work colleagues and so on, most of the time you don't really run out of things to talk about. You've got plenty of stuff to say, you can be a natural, normal personality, but when we get around women sometimes, we get a little bit nervous, we start worrying about making a great first impression, which is a good thing to do, you know, we want to make a good first impression, but because of that sometimes we start over-analyzing what we have to say, we start worrying if it may or may not be good enough. And because of that, we're using up all our brain's resources to think of things to talk about and worry about that stuff. And because of that, our natural personality and the normal things that we would talk about if we're around our friends or in a more relaxed environment, it can't happen. And then we just kind of go quiet or we act awkward and then, yeah, things don't go so well. So how do you stop that? Like, well, I want to talk about that now. Well, look, the first thing I want you to do is start realizing when you catch yourself sort of trying to overanalyze things and try and impress. And I want you just to kind of lower the standard. I want you just to sort of allow yourself to say whatever is coming into your mind, all right? And that could be something that you think, oh, but that's silly, I don't want to talk about that. That might not be something cool, but who cares? Just talk about it, because again, talking about anything is better than trying to sort of talk about something that's really amazing and cool, but then because of that, you can't think of anything at all right? So the first thing is just lower the standard of how good something has to be in order for you to be able to say it. The second thing I want you to do is when you catch yourself starting to run out of stuff to say, is if you've just completely gone blank, I want you just to talk about running out of stuff to say. So for example, you might be talking to the girl, you've run out of stuff to talk about, and then, you know, kind of gets a bit quiet for a bit, and then you sort of think, oh, okay, I'm just gonna talk about running out of stuff to say. So you might say, hey, just out of curiosity, when you first meet someone for the first time, like even if they're quite a cool person, do you ever just kind of draw a blank and you might sort of run out of things to talk about, or you don't really know what you should say or something like that? Does that ever happen to you, right? And now because you're actually talking about that with the girl, we're actually gonna allow her to relax a lot. It also, as again, is a topic in and of itself. And she's also gonna think, okay, this guy's kind of genuine. He just gets it that sometimes people just don't know what to say, even if they like each other or they don't have a problem with each other. It's just a normal part of human interaction. And that's probably gonna drop her guard a bit and might actually help her sort of have a bit more closer comfort with you, okay? So that's another great tip. The next thing I want you to think about is, you've probably heard about this before, the difference between open and closed questions in conversation. So you want to avoid closed questions, which are questions that have the yes or no answer. So don't say, oh, did you have a good day? They can answer with a yes or no answer. And then they might just say yes, and then the conversation stops, right? So you want to ask an open question, which means they actually have to use a few words or a few sentences in order to answer your question. So instead you could say, oh, tell me what things you got up to today. And then they have to actually answer with a few sentences, and it's going to keep the conversation moving for a bit longer. But I want to go one step further than just open and closed questions, because a lot of people know about this. And this is a concept that I may or may not have thought of first, but I think it's pretty cool anyway. So it's not just open or closed questions, it's actually open or closed answers. So even when you're asking questions, obviously you've got the choice of asking an open or closed question, but when you're answering, you have that same choice. So if somebody asks you a closed question, which would only actually require you to answer with a yes or no, or a one-word answer, for example, if someone says, oh, what do you do for work? You might just say, whatever your job description is. Then you can actually give, instead of just a closed one-worded or a couple of words answer, you can actually give a big, long answer. Now what this is going to do is actually, and again, keep the conversation moving for longer, and it's going to give the girl a lot more topics and things about you that she can grab onto to help her keep the conversation going with you after you've actually answered the question, okay? So let's do an example of that. So maybe she says, oh, so what do you do for work? You might say, oh, I'm an accountant. And then again, that would just stop the conversation. So instead you might say, well, you know, a long time ago, when I was a kid, I actually wanted to be a fireman, I wanted to be a policeman, I wanted to be an astronaut, or something like that, right? But then, you know, I grew up, I went to school, and then at school I kind of learned about this, and I started really enjoying this thing. And then once I got to uni, I had to pick a topic, and then I chose, you know, I was quite interested in mathematics, I was good at maths, I wanted to be an accountant. And then, you know, first I worked at this firm, and then now I worked here, and da-da-da-da-da, right? And then I worked in this country or that city or whatever. And then it's such a big answer. So you've talked about school, what you wanted to be when you're little, university, different jobs, different cities. And so now you've got all these different topics that she can actually choose from to carry on the conversation after you finish with your answer. So that's an open answer. It's giving her a lot more ammunition to keep the conversation going after the fact. So those are my top tips anyway for today for keeping conversations going. I hope you loved this video. Now, if you did, I want you to share this with someone that you know that sometimes runs out of stuff to say, and help a brother out. You know, we've got to help our friends out. Share this video with somebody so that they can also get these great tips, so they don't have to suffer the dreaded running out of stuff to say syndrome. Also, if you like the video, or if you have any other comments or tips on how to not run out of stuff to say, I want you to post in the comments below. I want to hear your top tips for how to not run out of stuff to say. And I also would love for you to subscribe to our channel to make sure that you get these videos first. So thank you so much for watching. Goodbye from Singapore, and remember to stay legendary out there.